Alright, welcome to the penultimate 3 years to go pro vlog. Right now it is the Thursday, or exactly 1 week before our first event at National Trials, which is 5,000 meters. So I'm just going to go through what's happened the last 2 or so weeks and just my plans going into the events coming up. Alright, so when I last left off, I was preparing for a 5,000 meters on the track on the Saturday at a small meet. So as it turns out, that will be an indication of just how long meters is done in Jamaica. So going to the track meet, didn't really get an indication of who else was there, so couldn't prepare that much, but it didn't matter much. I was just preparing for our own racing, how far I could progress. But turns out there was a meet before it. It seemed like a primary or prep camps meet, and then it was supposed to go into our adult meets. So just sat around, got the babes, paid the money, and then sat down waiting, and then because of the previous meet seems to have gone over time, so just waiting for any announcement of when I started to marshal. Just started to warm up as well, given that the time, I didn't have a schedule, but just knowing the time of when they will probably start, just started to warm up just in case they want to move quickly. But I'm still sitting down waiting on any sort of call, and then I hear a gunshot and I see one person running on the track. So of course this is confusion, so get up, say it's likely some madness going on. So I walk around and go to the start line, ask them what's happening for the 5,000 meters. Everyone was confused at me, and one person running on the track. So by this time, I believe 3 other people have came. So there are 2 people from road races normally. That's Kamara Leslie and one older person, and there's one other person from a school. Then so the one person on the track that was from JC, seems to be like class 2 or such. So I was wondering, alright, so what's happening? There was no call, there was no indication or anything. So you just walk around, and then they say, oh, it started already, don't worry. So it's like, at this point, we paid the money and got the babes. I warmed up, they didn't. So at this point, just run by yourself, time yourself, and see what happens. So they convinced me to go and tell the starter at the end that, hey, we're going to run by ourselves, and we need to worry about timing ourselves, and then run back. They're trying to stop us, because of course, that may affect their meets going into it in terms of ending and moving on to the next event. But didn't really care at that point, just came to run and however long we'll take. So running the event, time myself. Of course the excitement started out a bit hard. I was fairly able to keep it composed, and then in the middle of the race, just keep that hamstrings very decent going around. And then for the last 2 laps, started putting out the blocks for the 400 hurdles, which was the next event apparently on the schedule. So at that point, it's been around 6 or 7 minutes since the first person went off. He finished the race in like 17 or 18, so I had actually passed him while I was running to complete my event. So yeah, and my last race put it on time and saying we have to come on the track. Unfortunately for me, I was in the last 2 laps. However, unfortunately for those last 2 laps, couldn't have kept the pace as much as I wanted. I wasn't able to increase the speed as much as I wanted. Partially it's just excitement at the start, partially just a constant issue with my running. So I think those last 2 laps were far slower than anything else. But Thursdays came in a time of like 16:27, 16:28. So that is fairly standard what you would expect for 5,000 meters on track. It's not the huge improvement, it's not terrible either. So that is what it is. Given all that happened, and of course you're all having a joke about the confusion that had gone on. And actually, while running the race, you're hearing announcements saying, oh, by the way, the marshalling tents are different locations. So of course, even if there was no announcement, I couldn't have found out the marshalling tent was anywhere else to find out what's happening, because it was a different location than normal. So all those different things just show that you don't really take 5,000 meters serious in Jamaica. But either way, so finished the event. I actually went to I was trying to actually leave because as far as I think it was only entered for the 5,000 meters. it turns out there was 1500 meters. One of the people competing me told me that my name was written down there as well. So I called the coach, says, Coach, did you actually register me for 1500? He said, oh, by the way, yes, I did, just cool down around it again. So I said, alright, see what happens again. The same 1500 meters started the 3 to 4. Wasn't as packed up this time. It was like 10 or 11 people instead of 20 as a couple weeks before. In that race, I tried to start out slowly, but it seemed like everyone else was starting out slowly. That was their plan as well. So by the end of the first 300 meters, I said, alright, at this point just increase the pace and see how long I can keep it up. And I dropped off most of the pack from that. So yeah, that first 300 meters was slow, trying to get someone to in front, and I was like, just have to run and see what happens. Stayed in front for the entire race mainly up until the last 200 meters. Like I said, my end part of the race is normally the slowest, and it's normally slowest in comparison to other people because everyone else is able to like generate that power to go through the end. And I think just because of how I'm built and how I normally run, I'm just not able to do that normally. So by 300 meters, I'm guessing that one other person that's from JC, I believe, he started gaining ground, and then by the end of the 100 meters actually, he came to the front. So at this point I was like, he told us to just keep pace with him. But something I noticed is that normally when this happens, when someone moves to the front in the 100 meters, start moving away from me. So I was barely moving at all, moving any faster. Realized he wasn't moving any faster either, so I was wondering, this guy is probably higher, see what happens. And like the last 30 meters or so, I said, alright, try to ease in front, just a bit more effort, and won that fairly easily. So it seems like he put all the energy into getting past that last 200 meters to get up to me, but didn't have anything else for the last 50 or so meters, because it wasn't like that just people at line. It was like 30 meters I was trying to increase space past him, and then nothing else happened in terms of increasing his pace from there to the end. So guess the difference in racing style from what I now want to see. But the time was like 4:11 or so. So fast enough before, just even an indication that my running style really isn't to blast off from the start, try to hold up, because in the end of my race, I don't have the power to generate my sprint speed at the end. So just indication of how I run is that keep it relaxed as I can to the start, and then in the middle of the race I can just use the difference in overall pace to slowly make up that ground. I hope I innovate, and what I was trying to come up is I'm too tired to make much of a difference. So yeah, that's just indication of what happens for 5,000 meters and long distance events in general. So the week after, it was actually supposed to be at 5,000 meters again, but just again an indication, they cancelled it with an email to members of staff for the event like 2 days before. So fortunately my coach was previously a J3A staff, so he got that email. If he didn't get that, I would have gotten nothing. I would have learned nothing about that 5,000 meters being cancelled. So that's very fortunate for me that not go there and then have even more confusion. But I was also kind of fortunate as well, because the day after there's going to be the Thursday 5K that is Best Chicken 5K in Hope Gardens. So when I did that last year, I got the time of like 15:50, which was a big indication of where I was. And this year, wasn't being able to do it, given of course like the other events taking place, but since that got cancelled, went to it same way. It was similar people running. The year before it was Kamara Leslie, and this year it's same man again. Tried to run it in the same way, actually changed the course a bit. At the start they had a steep incline for longer, so previously it would be a steep incline, then a flat that goes like for a longer time period for running back down. This time it was 2 short steep inclines and then flat for a longer time and then down. So it's more a test of like doing power at the start, which is easier for me than at the end. Once I got past those 2 hills and a lot of flats, I made up the ground to Mr. Leslie. But then he started saying something about hey, what about you give me doing for like $20,000? Of course, I'm running, I'm not really hearing clearly, but I'm like, I'm just going to run and see what happens at the end. So I wasn't really sure what he was saying that for. Of course, that time took me up to a race, so I actually planning to, on the downhill part I knew was coming up, I planned to increase the distance and then hopefully hold that until the end. But because of that, we took out and then come to a turn that was unexpected. I didn't hold it the same way, so I just went straight behind him again for that last 2.5 kilometers, and then for the last 400 meters he repeated again and said, are you going to let me win this race? And I said, actually no, let's just go to the end to see what happens. And I end, of course, tried to barely increase the street speed. It wasn't actually like a huge burst of power, but just increasing the street speed a bit, and he wasn't able to, or just didn't. So by the end I won that race fairly comfortably. Time was like 16:26 for the trip time. So again, far behind what I was last year in terms of the 15:50. Also, I think that's just a change in the course and a change in the and of course what happened mid-race when I was trying to ramp up that speed. So of course it gives an indication now some light years ahead of where I was last year either. So yeah, I actually won a race, came of course with interviews and such. Someone from Gatorade doing some promotion as well. And it turns out what I assume happened is that he heard the prize was going to be like a trip for two to a San resort at the end for first place. I didn't know that was happening at all. Seems to be announced right at the end. So cross probably going to get my parents for them for their anniversary coming up. Since I really have no use for that. But yeah, so it is. So that's probably my last road race I'm going to have to do when I'm competing as an athlete. From this point on, it'll just be for health, for running sake, and whatever else I'm doing. Really not looking to like the time or competing or things like that. So I was able to win the last road race that I ever do in this sort of mindset. Of course, for Father's Day as well, since my father introduced me to running all the way back when I was 6-7 years old in grade 1 or so. So yeah, that's one thing that happened as well. So now for me going into the last week of training, so started ramping down actually the mileage. So previously we were like 9 miles, 15, 16k, 20k or such. So this week I've cut out the last of the weights and I start ramping down the distance to like 5Ks and such. And then of course by Monday I believe we'll be mostly just resting and stretching the legs mainly. Going into my events, so it's 27 and 28 on my events, 5,000, 1,500. It's not in the night, it's going to be sunny, so seems like the heat will be a problem, but it's nothing new really since I've been training in heat for a while. So going into those events, 5,000 meters, so I'm fairly sure I'm not going to do any sub 15 or so. That seems to be out of the question really, given times I've been doing so far, and of course not just light years ahead. So I'm just looking to keep it relaxed for that first 1 kilometer, first 2 kilometers actually, and then see if anyone's there. I'll drop them hopefully within the next 2 kilometers because of course my running style, if anyone is still within by the last 400 meters, they're likely going to win given my running style, not really having that much power at the end. But we'll see what happens, give it my best shot. It's the last time I'll be competing in the 5,000 meters and see what happens. So hopefully I'll win, hopefully get a PB. If not, then just see what happens and be glad of what I've accomplished so far, which is honestly more than I thought going into this at the start 3 years ago when I started this blog. 1,500 after hours is just like a complete for fun race. I have no intention of doing much, maybe sub 4, maybe see what happens, but unlikely. Not sure who will be running as well, since at this point most of the people at high school who are running are for OOC, so only competing at trials. So yeah, that feeling is just completely for fun. Best I can do for my very last race. So yeah, that's it. I've been fairly healthy this year, which is good. My quarantine still isn't too up with me. If I run for a while or if I stretch in a active way too much, it starts flaring up, but it's never been like a sharp pain. So hopefully, I'm sure that doesn't come to be even more significant going forward. And then, and then illness as well that's happened last year. So just hoping for good health, no injuries going into the national trials, and that I can reasonably do the best I can and finish off these 3 years and my track career well. Yeah, so when you next see me, it will either be right before or right after the last two events. I don't think it makes sense to do another vlog right before, since we're just repeating the same things here. So yeah, it'll probably be right after the event. I'm not sure when I'll actually be able to upload that, since going into like research projects straight afterwards. So yeah, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished so far. I just hope to end it off well at National Trials 2024. Alright.